We're on number 10. Let's go through some of these. What is a testament? An agreement, a covenant. This one particularly, agreement between man and God. What's the purpose of the New Testament? To save all men. That's it. All that other stuff funnels into that one thought. God gave us, or we have the New Testament for the purpose of saving us. So the purpose of the New Testament is to save all men. What is inspired by God? The New Testament, isn't it? Yeah. Inspired meaning God breathed. Every word was chosen specifically, given to the writers for them to write down. It is actually God's Word. Talked about this 2 weeks ago when we did this lesson. The angel who came to Mary, what was his name? Gabriel. Remember, Gabriel was sent by God, appeared to Mary in the city of Nazareth. She was betrothed to Joseph of the house of David. Gabriel told Mary not to fear. She had found favor with God, and that she would conceive, have a son, and his name would be Jesus. And this was a fulfillment of the prophecy from Isaiah 7:14. The angel told Joseph, "Fear not to take Mary as your wife." Think about that for a minute. You're betrothed, kind of like engagement, even more serious. Okay, get into all the details. You're Joseph, and the person that we would call fiancé. But the person that you're going to marry is pregnant. And as it says here, before they came together, or the Bible would say, Mary had not known a man. You know, one of those phrases meaning that they had not had physical relationship yet. If you're Joseph, what are you thinking? She's cheated on you. Okay? According to their customs, there was a way for him to put her away, divorce. He was going to do that privately to not embarrass her. But the angel came. What did the angel say? Fear not. Just like he told Mary, fear not. To take Mary as your wife, that which is conceived in her is of the Holy Spirit. Joseph was a good man, and he did exactly that. So where was Jesus born? Born in Bethlehem, but they lived in Nazareth. How'd they get to Bethlehem? They had to be taxed, didn't they? Caesar wanted to know how many people were there so that he could tax them. So a census or a taxation, and everybody had to return to their hometown. Joseph, being of David's family, where did his family have to go? To the city of David, Bethlehem. So that's how they ended up in Bethlehem. But because there was no room in the inn, Jesus was born in a manger, born in a stable. All right, this is where we got to. Angels told shepherds of what? Jesus' birth. Okay? Now, some of this that we can go through, it's just pretty well factual, isn't it? You read about it and not a whole lot to say, but we've got a couple comments. Luke chapter 2. Luke chapter 2, we're in verses 9 and 10. Luke 2. And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, the shepherds, that's who it's talking about, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were afraid. And the angel said, "Fear not." Angel says that every time, doesn't it? Angel said, "Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people." So they announced of Jesus' birth. Now, we're talking about this, so let's just get it out of the way. When was Jesus born? What day? When does the world celebrate it? We all understand that. Early in winter, right? December 25th. Does the Bible say that? No. In fact, from this passage here in Luke, we can pretty much guarantee that it wasn't December 25th. When the angel finds the shepherds, what are they doing? They're doing shepherd business, aren't they? They're out with the sheep in the field. Customs for that time dictate that if they were in the field with the sheep, this was sometime, I'll spread it out as far as I could possibly spread it out, March to October, maybe the 1st of November. Okay? They were in the field. If it was December, where would they have been? They're not in the field, they're in the fold. They're locked up in a smaller area so that they can be better taken care of during the colder months. So this passage pretty well tells us, without telling us, that December 25th is not the day that Jesus was born, because the shepherds were in the field with the flock. Okay? Do what? The origin of that, from just reading and thinking about it, not going back this week and kind of looking at it. December 25th. Why is it that way? There are several theories or ideas about it. This is the one I think makes the most sense. At some point during the early centuries, the universal church, the Catholic Church, that's what Catholicism means, universal, but it's the group that was in ruling, making the rules. We're bringing in people of different customs and beliefs. One of those customs and beliefs was when the days started getting longer. Was that the winter solstice? Is that how you say that? Which is somewhere December 22nd, December 23rd. The days start getting longer, and these people, heathen, pagans, would have a celebration of the winter solstice. Okay? To incorporate them in and make that celebration that they were having something that the church could handle. That seemed to be, logically to me, that seems to be why December 25th, or that time, that period of our calendar, why that was picked a little bit. I don't know that for sure, but just from reading and studying, that seems to be. And so the Catholic Church determined that December 25th, and then it's been celebrated as that. So that's a short version. Came after Jesus was born. I don't have any idea when Santa Claus was, other than the Santa Claus version that we have in the United States is from a poem from the 19th century, 18th century, something like that. Oh yeah, the Santa Claus, the red suit, beard, all that kind of stuff. If you're considering that religious, that would have come from.
No, that would definitely be pagan, but I thought maybe that the religious people tried to make it into a religious holiday.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Okay, so the angels told the shepherds of Jesus' birth. What did those shepherds do? Left the sheep in the field, didn't they? They went to Bethlehem. Where did they find the baby Jesus? In the manger, wrapped in swaddling clothes. Okay? Some kind of garment that they wrap newborns in. Okay? All right. Most likely, as we said before, this was late March, early November. But we don't know when the date Jesus was born. What are we supposed to celebrate? What date are we supposed to celebrate that we find in the New Testament? First day of the week, isn't it? First day of the week. First day of the week being the day that Jesus arose from the dead, establishment of the church. That's Sunday, isn't it? Every week. I'm not sure if this was the first time in the Bible, but it's the one that comes to my mind. Humans are going to worship or honor sites and people and things like that God never intended them to do. Okay? And the first one of these that I think of that God purposely behaved in a certain situation was when Moses died. Who buried Moses? God did. And the reason my thinking is that God did that is if they had a big funeral, we'd call it a funeral, and a big celebration, that's probably not the right word, but a big ceremony, and there was a place that you knew and I knew and all the people and the children of Israel all knew where Moses was buried, what would they have done with that site? Yeah, it would have become a religious, journey to go there and worship and all that kind of stuff. And so there are purposefully things that we're not told or that are hidden from us so that they don't become what December 25th has become in our society. And people do it anyway. Okay? But we know for sure that we are to worship, we're to celebrate, we're to honor, as Reggie called it, the first day of the week, Sunday every week. Lord's Day, right? On your phone?
The church in Rome began formally celebrating Christmas on December 25th in 336 AD during the reign of Emperor Constantine. And then the Santa Claus tradition began in the 4th century.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, somebody that came and did all that stuff. Our tradition, when I said the 17th, 18th century, there's some kind of, and I don't want to say it's Santa Claus is coming to town or whatever it is, but there was some story that talked about Santa Claus in a red suit and beard and all that. For the first time, it's been that late, 17th, 18th century. Yes. Yeah. Just like St. Patrick drove snakes out of Ireland, and now everybody celebrates that on Santa Claus. Anyway, I think we've talked about all that. Shepherds went immediately after they were told to Bethlehem, and they found Jesus in the manger. Keep that in mind. The shepherds found Jesus in the manger. All right. 8 days later, Jesus circumcised, but within 40 days, according to the law of Moses, there had to be a sacrifice for male children. Jesus being a male, there had to be a sacrifice. Leviticus chapter 12, 2 through 8 talks about this. A lamb had to be sacrificed. and a turtle dove or a pigeon, some type of bird. It calls it there. But Mary presented baby Jesus unto the Lord by sacrificing. She was not able to sacrifice a lamb. What did she have to sacrifice? 2 turtle doves. There's that song. That's a song too, isn't it? 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons. The poor were allowed an exemption from sacrificing a lamb. If they could not afford a lamb, then they had to sacrifice an additional bird. Okay? A lamb and a bird or 2 birds. That's what it says in Leviticus. One was a burnt offering, the other was a sin offering. Any questions or comments about that? That's kind of pretty well straightforward, isn't it? When a male was born, it was the law that the sacrifice should be made. Mary sacrificed a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons. Mary and Joseph took Jesus to Jerusalem to do the sacrifice and present him to the Lord. And this was done within 40 days of Jesus' birth. So from Bethlehem, they went to Jerusalem. All right, here we go. Wise men. Where did the wise men come to? Wise men came to, not where, but what did they do? They came to worship Jesus. Do not raise your hand. I don't want anybody to feel bad or good or anything. If in your head right there we thought about wise men coming to worship Jesus, in your head did you think of in the manger, in the stable with the animals and everything around? Is that the picture that you saw? That's what we've been, Jerry's ahead of me over here. That's what we've been conditioned to think, right? How many of them were there? How many of you in your head in this scene that's in front of courthouses and hospitals and wherever else, people's front yards at December 25th, during this time, how many of you saw 3 in that picture in your head? Just like December 25th, we're not told how many there were. We are told for sure that this didn't happen at the manger, didn't happen at the stable. At some point after, I think Luke's recording it in order, after this period of Mary and Joseph going and presenting Jesus to the Lord and the sacrifice of the 2 birds. Okay? What happens to these wise men? Matthew chapter 2. Star appears in the sky. They know exactly what it means, don't they? They don't know everything about it. Because instead of going to Bethlehem, where Jesus was born, where did they go? Didn't they go to see Herod in Jerusalem? And they asked him, where is it that the King of the Jews, this new king that's been born, where was that written that he would be born? Even Herod himself didn't know for sure, or didn't know at all, because he started asking the scribes. Is that what it says there? Where did they say that Jesus was going to be born? Well, according to the Old Testament, that's what they were looking at, all the prophecies. He was going to be born in Bethlehem. Okay? The wise men then came to Bethlehem to worship Jesus and bring him gifts. This is an actual picture of the event. I was hoping I'd see at least a smile or two. The reason I know there weren't 3 is because there's 4 in this picture. That's what I was going to say. They go to Herod, inquire. Herod asks his wise men, his people that were well schooled on the scriptures, say Bethlehem. So these wise men go to Bethlehem and they found, it says, the young child in the house, not the manger. Okay? So this was probably, according to people that are a lot smarter than me, anywhere from 6 months to maybe a year after the events that took place at the manger. Okay? So they found the young child in the house. They came to worship. What did they bring with them? Gifts. And how many gifts did they bring, Regina? Okay, we know there were 3 types of gifts, weren't there? There was gold, frankincense, which a gummy residue that they burned as incense. Okay, and the other one was called myrrh. Okay, and it's an ointment also made from a gummy residue of a certain type of tree. So we have gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So each wise man specifically only brought one and each one thing, and that's how we end up with, I think, people thinking there's 3, isn't it? There were 3 gifts, but how many wise men does it say that there were? Wise men indicate that's 2 or more, doesn't it? Couldn't have been 1 because that would have been a wise man. So it says wise men. But with 3 gifts, people just assume. People have just come to that assumption because of 3 gifts. Each person brought 1 gift. 1 brought gold, 1 brought frankincense, 1 brought myrrh. But that's not what it says. We don't know. Could it have been 3? Yes. Just like it could have been any other number except 1. It couldn't have been 1 because it says men. It could have been 2. It could have been 4. It could have been 12. We're exactly right. Yeah. Right. By the time the wise men left Jerusalem, okay, Herod said, go to Jerusalem, or they left Jerusalem, go to Bethlehem, find him, and then come back and tell me. And Herod did that because he was not scared, like trembly, shaky, but he was keenly aware that this was supposed to be the king of the Jews, and that's what Herod thought he was, wasn't it? And this was somebody that was going to come and take his place. So he wanted to know where this Messiah, this anointed one, was at, so he could take care of it. So he told the wise men to go there and then come back and report to me. The wise men were warned not to do that. Okay? And so, as Gail said, after some point, Herod thought, you know what, those guys didn't come back like they were supposed to. And then Herod makes the decree, the killing of the innocents. That's what it's kind of known. It doesn't say that in the New Testament. But every male child 2 years old and younger. Now think about that. If the wise man had went to the manger, did you think Herod would have waited 2 years? I mean, I can't see him waiting very long at all. Whatever time it would have taken for them to go to Jerusalem, to Bethlehem, and back. A couple weeks, a couple months, but not 2 years. So I think that leads credence, as Gail pointed out, that Jesus, when the wise men went to worship him, was older than a baby in the manger. Plus it says young child as well. Okay, because of this, the fear that Herod has that Jesus is going to take his place, The decree that boys 2 years old and younger, that's verse 16, were to be killed. Joseph is told to do what? Take Jesus to Egypt to avoid this killing of the babies. I have Hosea 11:1 written down. A prophecy that of this very event, that Jesus would be kept safe in Egypt, be brought out, return from Egypt at some point. When was that point? When would the danger be over? When Herod died? So Herod dies. Joseph is told he could return with his family. They had been living there, Bethlehem. But where did they go back to this time? We'll talk about this. Just read those quickly if you'd like. The return from Egypt was fulfilling the prophecy, Hosea 11:1. I mentioned that, so there you see it. But where did Jesus grow up? Did he grow up in Bethlehem, the city of David? Did he grow up in Jerusalem? No, where did he grow up? Grew up in Nazareth. Because when they came back from Egypt, Herod's son, I guarantee you I'll have trouble with this name. I can't even find it. Well, let's just call him Herod's son. In my head, I can see it. It ends L-A-U-S, right? Archelaus. Archelaus. I don't know why. I'll find it here in a minute, I'm sure. Verse 22. Okay. His son ruled. Joseph's thinking, hey, it's probably not safe to be around there. If Herod, the father, had these ideas, Herod's son could also have the same ideas. So Joseph returned, as says verse 22, returned not there to that area around Bethlehem, but returned to Nazareth in Galilee. We jump over to Luke chapter 2, verse 4 tells us that. So that it could be prophesied that could be fulfilled the prophecy that Jesus would be called a Nazarene. After Herod's death, the angel told Joseph to bring Mary and Jesus back to the land of Israel. He was afraid, learned that, there it is, Archelaus was reigning in his father's place. He warned him in a dream. So he went instead to the region of Galilee. That's back home, isn't it? Nazareth. That's where Mary was. That's where Joseph was when the angel first appeared to him. He came and dwelt in the city of Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled, which is spoken of the prophets, he shall be called a Nazarene. What was the age Jesus was when he sat in the temple? 12 years old. We don't know what happened from the time that they returned really from the land of Egypt, went to Nazareth. 3, 4, 5 years old, however old he was, to the age of 12, do we? But at the age of 12, what was the family doing? They were doing what they always did, weren't they? At some point during the year, they made the trip, the pilgrimage, back to Jerusalem to worship like they were commanded in the law of Moses to do. Didn't make a big deal about it. It just says that's what they were doing because that's what they always did. They went to worship as they were commanded. They were fulfilling this command. So Jesus was 12 years old. They go down. They're going to celebrate the Passover. This is an 8-day period. We're in Luke chapter 2. Down in verse 40, 41, somewhere in that neighborhood. 41. They're there for 8 days to celebrate Passover. And now they're on their way back home. How far out of town do they get? That's how we'd say it, wouldn't it? How far out of town do they get when they realized Jesus wasn't within their traveling group? Now you can imagine this. It wasn't just Mary, Joseph, Jesus. Maybe at this time some other brothers had been born or whatever. It wasn't just their small family. This was a large group of people going from Nazareth or from Galilee all the way to Jerusalem and back. They discover that Jesus isn't in their company after how many days? At some point during the first day or after a first day, maybe when they got settled down wherever they were going to stay for the evening and realized that Jesus wasn't with them. They had gone a day. How long then does it take to get back? Would take a day. Maybe hurrying a little faster, but still a day away, a day there, coming back. And then on the third day, as they're looking for Him, so 3 days, one day gone, one day back, and the next day looking. After 3 days, where do they find Him? They found Him in the temple. Typical, normal 12-year-olds would have been, picture in your head what they would have been doing. Mischief, getting into trouble, running around. Nobody's watching me. I can do kind of what I want to do. Just being rowdy. That's what kind of a 12-year-old does. But what was Jesus doing specifically? He was sitting in the temple with the teachers. Now, as a 12-year-old, if you're not rowdy, if you're really focused on doing what you need to do in order to serve God, you're 12 years old and you've got all these great teachers, the scribes, all these things going on. You're probably listening, aren't you? You're trying to learn as much as you can learn. You may be asking questions, so you're listening and asking questions. But what else does it say that Jesus was doing with these great leaders of the Jewish nation? He was teaching them too, wasn't he? So he was listening, he was questioning, but he was also teaching, wasn't he? His parents came looking for him. They found him sitting in the midst of the teachers in the temple, hearing and answering questions. What did Mary say? You scared us to death. Where have you been? Why'd you do this to us? You just took 10 years off my, all these things that modern we would say, but what does it record there? Why have you done this to us? What was Jesus' response? Don't you know I must be about my Father's business? All right, let's do this one. Lesson 3's out there in the tray. I want to do the first one because for some reason they disconnected these. But this goes with this account. Luke 2:52. Luke 2:52. We're going to mention this and then we'll bring it back next week. Luke 2:52 says, and Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. Okay? Jesus grew. He developed just like we do. Okay? In wisdom, he grew mentally. Stature, physically. In favor with God, spiritually. In favor with man, socially. Okay? So like I said, just mention that. We'll finish up. We'll talk a little bit more about that next week. I appreciate your patience today and your attention and the discussion that